No one ever told you this, but behind every smile a woman gives, behind every soft-spoken word, there's a whole storm she doesn't talk about. A quiet war between what she says and what she feels. No one prepared you for the reality that what she says she wants is often just a reflection of the moment, shaped by expectations, by social conditioning, by fear of being judged. And so you learned to take things at face value. You believed that if you just listened closely enough, if you followed her words like a map, if you responded with care and obedience, you'd find love. You'd win her heart. But this is where your understanding starts to crumble. Because it doesn't matter how carefully you listen. There's something deeper. Something she might not even be fully aware of. She's fighting her own inner contradictions. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this better than most. He didn't paint love in pastel colors. He didn't write fairy tales. He saw female love as a cold, relentless evolutionary force, not a story to comfort your soul, but a mechanism to ensure the survival of life itself. Let me say that again, in case your ego is still trying to defend itself. Her instincts are not searching for someone who simply makes her comfortable. They're hunting for someone who grounds her, someone with presence, someone with strength, someone who doesn't need her approval to stand tall. And here's the twist. While you're out here trying to interpret every phrase she says, trying to make sure you're meeting her emotional needs to the letter, she herself is confused. She says she wants peace, but something in her craves chaos. She claims to want gentleness, but her body and soul react to dominance, to decisiveness, to a man who knows exactly who he is and doesn't flinch. You see the conflict. It's not a logical contradiction. It's biological. Nature didn't build her to align with your moral values or your romantic ideals. It built her to choose, to test, to select. The love you imagine as noble and unconditional is in truth a finely tuned radar. It searches for power, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that radiates. Emotional resilience, leadership, certainty, a backbone that doesn't fold. And yes, she might look you in the eye and swear that your kindness is enough. But have you ever asked yourself, why is it that the nicer you are, the more distant she becomes? Take a hard look at yourself. All those hours spent crafting the perfect message, all those polite gestures, all that calculated patience. What did it bring you? Indifference, drifting attention, that slow, silent withdrawal that tells you she's lost interest. And if you're starting to feel that tightness in your chest, that mix of frustration and shame rising up, good. That means you're finally waking up. Because the issue isn't that you can't understand women. The issue is that you've been taught to take their words literally, to treat them as complete truths, even when they're not sure which part of themselves is speaking. Schopenhauer wasn't gentle with his insights. He didn't wrap them up in sugar. He called it like it is. The modern woman is a battlefield where biology and social programming fight for control. Want proof? Look at how often their words don't match their actions. She says she wants security, but when you give her nothing but consistency, she gets bored. She asks for understanding, but if that understanding comes without boundaries, you become invisible. She tells you not to change, but her instincts are drawn to those who grow, lead, and evolve without asking. It's a theatre, the most complex performance of all. A stage where polite smiles cover raw impulses, and those impulses, sooner or later, break through the surface. But here you are, still hoping that if you just listen more carefully, if you decode her words better,
you'll finally find the key. Let me be blunt. The key isn't in her words. It's in the gap between what she says and what her biology demands. So what happens when a man sacrifices his core just to please? When he gives up his edge to be what she says she wants? He loses respect, he loses presence, and with that, he loses the energy that once drew him in. Nobody talks about this. Why? Because to admit it would mean tearing down everything we've been taught about love, about romance, about partnership.
We were taught that love is selfless, that it's all about compromise, that it's about being a good man, a kind man, an available man. But what if I told you that love, at least in the form most women feel, is closer to a test than a reward? Because no, women aren't waking up each morning scheming to confuse or manipulate you. It's not personal. It's not even fully conscious. It's biological. There's a primal force inside them. A radar that doesn't care about your intentions, your sacrifices, your gentleness. It's looking for one thing. Can you hold your ground? Not in a way that crushes others, but in a way that shows you're whole, unshakable, rooted. And as long as you keep trying to please, to win affection through compliance, you'll stay stuck in the same loop. Attraction, submission, disinterest, rejection. You've seen it. You've felt it. That fire at the beginning when everything burned bright. And then, little by little, your acts of submission started to dim it, until you tried to reignite it, and it was too late. So let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest. How many times have you held your tongue just to keep her happy? How often have you chosen safety over honesty? How many times have you believed that the more you gave, the more she'd want you? And how often did it work? The truth nobody wants to say out loud is this. She doesn't need you to bend. She needs to feel that no matter what happens, you're still standing in the same spot. Still you. That's where the real magnetism lies. This isn't about pretending to be some alpha caricature. It's not about putting on a mask of confidence. It's about remembering that authenticity is your deepest power. Because when you give up who you are to please her, you don't just lose respect, you lose desire. Schopenhauer put it bluntly, the will, that raw instinctual drive, is blind and it moves every living thing. That drive doesn't care about romantic ideals. It's not interested in ethics or political correctness. It wants to survive. It wants to select. And it does not ask your permission. So she might tell you she wants a man who is sensitive, emotionally open, kind to a fault. But when she meets a man who gives her all of that, who adapts himself completely to her rhythm, who never pushes back, who asks for approval before speaking, something slowly begins to rot. And what rots first is respect. Without respect, desire withers. And without desire, there's nothing left to build on. This is what no one teaches you. Attraction isn't earned through niceness. It's not about being the most agreeable man in the room. It's about being whole, with or without her. It's about holding a quiet power, a presence that says, I don't need to prove anything. And the paradox? The less you need her, the more powerful your presence becomes. Because when you feel complete in your solitude, you stop radiating need. You stop exhaling that invisible scent
of desperation. And that's what kills most men's chances. Not their looks, not their income, not their height. It's the smell of need. The subconscious signal that says, I am nothing without you. And here's what women do when they detect it. They pull away. Not because they're cruel, but because their instincts are whispering, this man cannot carry himself. He cannot carry me. Visualize this for a moment. A man who tries to be perfect ends up acting like a grown-up child. Harmless, predictable, easy to like, but impossible to respect. He gives everything, thinking it will earn him love, but it only earns him invisibility. You see it over and over again. Nice guys who get thanked, but never chosen. Why? Because what women are selecting for, deep down, isn't just kindness. It's energy. It's strength. It's conviction. And no, this doesn't mean you need to be aggressive or domineering. It means you need to stop folding. It means you need to be a man who has a center. Now let's go even deeper. There's something more disturbing, more uncomfortable, but even more essential. Many women today live in constant conflict. Their social self speaks one language, their biological self speaks another. They will say they don't want dominance, but they feel drawn to men who take the lead. They will insist they want total equality, but they melt when they feel protected. They will tell you arrogance is a turnoff, but they light up when they meet a man who doesn't ask for permission to exist. This is not hypocrisy, it's biology. And biology doesn't negotiate. You, on the other hand, keep trying to be exactly what they claim to want. You become agreeable, supportive, emotionally fluent, and then you wonder why the desire dies. You become her therapist, her safety net, her emotional support system, but never her obsession. Let that sink in. Because you don't get there by being perfect. You get there by being untouchably yourself. You don't earn her passion by being agreeable. You earn it by being real. And here's the part most men will never face. You are not supposed to become what she says she wants. You are supposed to become so grounded in who you are, so clear in your path, that her desire bends toward you without her even realizing it. That's not manipulation. That's presence. That's energy. So, ask yourself, are you constantly trying to prove yourself? Are you adjusting who you are every time she shifts her tone? Are you walking on eggshells, hoping your diplomacy will spark desire? Because if you are, then understand, you've become an accessory, not a mystery, not a source of fire, just something convenient. She may keep you around, but she will not want you. That's why you must stop being a diplomat. Stop being a mirror. Stop waiting for permission to speak your truth. It doesn't mean you need to be cruel or unkind. It means you need to stop treating her expectations like gospel. Because guess what? Even she doesn't fully understand her expectations. And if your identity relies on meeting those moving targets, you will burn out fast. So,
Here's the real test. Can you be kind without being soft? Can you be available without being needy? Can you be attentive without bending your spine? That's what she's feeling for, deep down, under the words. Not a perfect man, not a sensitive poet, but a force. A man who walks into a room and doesn't shrink even when everyone else wants him to. A man who doesn't fear being misunderstood, who doesn't trade his values for affection, who doesn't collapse in the face of silence. That's the man she remembers. That's the man who lingers in her thoughts years later. That's the man who leaves a mark. Now here's something no one says out loud, but you need to hear it. Desire isn't logical. It isn't fair. It doesn't follow rules. Desire is wild. It's unpredictable. It's ancient. And it doesn't care how many sacrifices you've made. So the question is, will you keep living like your purpose is to be accepted? Or will you finally stop asking for permission and start living from your center? Because that is what draws her in. Not your perfection, not your predictability, not your selfless devotion. It's your unchangeable presence. This isn't about becoming some kind of manipulative bad boy. It's about owning your truth so fully that the real you is what people respond to, not the version you edited to be liked. See, true magnetism isn't about having all the right moves. It's about being impossible to move. Schopenhauer put it harshly, but precisely. When a man gives up his will, he stops being a person. He becomes a resource. And no woman truly desires a resource. She might use it. She might appreciate it. But it doesn't ignite her. What ignites her is the man who doesn't flinch. The man who has standards, who would rather walk away than betray himself, because that's the only kind of man she can't control, and paradoxically, the one she respects the most. Now here's the turning point, the moment where most men break, the realization that they've spent years walking in the wrong direction, that the very traits they believed would win love, agreeableness, compliance, emotional sacrifice, were the same things making them invisible. It's not easy to face. No one wants to admit they've built their identity around being needed, only to discover that neediness repels desire. But if you can face that truth head on, without excuses, something powerful happens. You get your energy back. The energy you lost trying to be perfect. The energy you drained by asking for approval. The energy you buried by silencing your instincts. And suddenly, the fog starts to lift. You realize respect isn't born from being liked. It's born from contrast. If you never offer resistance, if you never disagree, if you never assert your own rhythm, how can you expect to create tension? And tension, like it or not, is the birthplace of attraction. So next time you feel the urge to stay silent, just to keep the peace, ask yourself,
Are you protecting the relationship? Or are you just abandoning yourself again?
Every time you mute your voice out of fear, you become more forgettable. Every time you twist yourself into shape to avoid conflict, you lose what makes you magnetic. Because women don't fall in love with convenience. They fall in love with presence. They fall in love with something they can't fully control. And guess what? They know the difference. Even if they can't articulate it, they know when your calm is real and when it's just a mask. They feel it when your independence is true and when it's just another tactic to win favor. And the moment they detect that your confidence is a costume, they disconnect. Not out of malice, but out of instinct. Because their biology is ruthless. It can smell weakness. It can sense desperation. It can feel whether your power is real or borrowed. So if your calm is fake, if your presence is performative, if your strength is conditional, they're gone. Maybe not physically right away, but emotionally, spiritually, they're already somewhere else. Now let's talk about mystery, because mystery is not your enemy. Mystery is your greatest ally. It's what keeps you interesting. It's what holds attention. It's what makes a woman wonder, who is this man really? But if every move you make is designed for approval, you lose all mystery. You become see-through, predictable, boring. But when you dare to keep a part of yourself unedited, when you stop explaining every emotion, every decision, every breath, you become unforgettable. Not because you're hiding, but because you're complete. And wholeness doesn't explain itself. It just is. So I challenge you to stop trying to decode every word she says. Stop turning her desire into a puzzle you think you can solve. Because you can't out-analyze instinct. You can't logic your way into being irresistible. Instead, start listening to your own instinct. Start asking, is what I'm doing right now coming from fear or from choice? Is what I'm saying aligned with my truth or just another strategy to stay liked? Because if your whole life is one big performance, you will exhaust yourself. You'll lose your edge. You'll lose your presence. And when that happens, you won't be rejected because you weren't enough. You'll be rejected because you became nothing. Let that settle. Because presence is everything. Now imagine this. You walk into a room and say only what's necessary. You don't try to prove. You don't try to impress. You just are. And the calm in you isn't rehearsed. It's real. The confidence in you isn't loud. It's still. And that stillness, that calm gravity, it draws people in. Because it's rare. Because it's powerful. Because it doesn't ask for anything in return. That's the man who sparks something in her, not the one who tries the hardest, not the one who bends the most, but the one who knows himself. And if this message stirred something in you, if it made your chest tighten, your breath pause, good. That's the feeling of illusion breaking. That's the moment where you realize the truth may hurt, but it frees. So here's my final reflection. Not all contradictions need to be solved. Not all questions need answers. Not all emotions need to be understood. Some things are meant to be felt. Some things are meant to test you. Some things are meant to ask, will you stay grounded while the storm rages around you? Because that's the man who commands attention. That's the man who lives with freedom. And that's the man she cannot forget. So stop chasing explanations. Start reclaiming your instinct. Stop asking to be chosen. Start choosing yourself.
And if this video hit you where it matters, if something opened inside you, don't let it fade. Subscribe, leave a comment, share it with the man you used to be, and write this in the comments below so I know you're not just listening, you're awakening. Mystery is power. Thank you for staying until the very end. Now shut everything off, sit in silence, and ask yourself, are you just a reflection or finally your own source of clarity? The rest, just noise. See you in the next one, if you dare.